support for Ukraine amid concerns over a pause on aid. Well, joining me live now is Jeffrey Edmonds, former senior advisor in the Office of the Secretary of Defense and adjunct senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Welcome to you. Thank you for being with us here on BBC News. I'd like to begin with that statement that we had from Poland's Prime Minister. And I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially he was saying that Russia's intensified attacks that we're seeing right now are the result of what he called appeasement from the United States, in his words. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's certainly, one of the possible drivers behind this. I mean, one, Ukraine and Russia have been exchanging attacks on each other's critical infrastructure for a long time. And while this is particularly horrible, it's not different than what they've been doing. But certainly the Russians could be taking advantage of what they perceive to be weakness on the Ukrainian side in the lack of intelligence sharing that we've now scaled back.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. To be specific about that intelligence sharing, one of the things that Washington has done is it's paused things like the sharing of satellite imagery of the situation on the battlefield, which we know that Ukrainians have long been relying on. How much of a blow do you think something like that is?
I think it's very significant. Look, the United States has battlefield situational awareness par none. I mean, we're better than anybody at it, and the Ukrainians have certainly benefited from that. It's unclear what we're still providing, but we're clearly not giving them the same level of battlefield awareness that they had before. I think we might still be providing them some intelligence that is defensive in nature, in that there's this duty to warn. We need to warn them if the Russians are attacking. But I think we've probably scaled back the intelligence that would enable them to launch more successful offensive operations.
So you've got this scaled back intelligence. At the same time, you've got these ramped up, once again, Russian attacks. I just wonder what you make of the diplomatic strategy that we're also seeing now from the United States. It's threatened Russia once again with sanctions, tariffs. Do you think something like that will be deterring Vladimir Putin?
I don't. And given the talks that are coming up this week, potential mineral deals, the administration talking about dealing with Putin, there's something that I think everybody needs to keep in mind. As long as Putin believes he is winning, and he is right now, he is not going to shy away from still trying to achieve his strategic objectives of a neutral, demilitarized Ukraine that's actually pro-Russian. He's not going to shy away from that. I think the administration has oversized estimations of what it can achieve with Putin. He's not going to stop as long as he thinks he's winning.
So what about then what we're seeing from Europe? Do you think European forces can guarantee Ukraine's security? We saw Vladimir Putin act fairly angrily, essentially, when Donald Tusk of Poland said that there would be training for all men in the country, in Poland, to be ready in the case of war coming further. What do you think Putin's making of that?
So I think he is trying to, in a certain sense, make the Europeans back down from providing the support to Ukraine. This is all part of the narrative that the United States isn't going to support, the Europe can't support. Well, that's not true, right? The Europeans have given more than the United States have, despite reports from the United States. And the Europeans can still do a lot. That's one part of it. The other part of this is that European countries have a window, while the Russian military is weak right now in Ukraine, to build up their own defense industrial base and to make any kind of future aggression much more troublesome for Russia than it is now. It can do that now while Russia is tied up in Ukraine. So I think, one, it can continue to support Ukraine and can do much more to do that, but also has a window to support itself.
And Jeffrey, you touched on the fact that we have talks this week in Saudi Arabia. Witkoff will be there, Ukraine representation as well, about a possible ceasefire. What do you think could come out of that?
I think you may get some of some remnant of this mineral deal, which there's not a lot there. It's not clear what rare minerals Ukraine actually has. These are Soviet era geological surveys. It takes a long time to get revenue from that. It has really nothing to do with stopping Putin. So it's not clear that the mineral deal is going to do anything. And again, even if there's even a temporary ceasefire, the Russian offensive in the east, which is making progress every day, is not going to stop as long as Putin believes he can still win. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that I think people need to be aware of with all of these talks. I don't think you're going to have any kind of meaningful talk, any kind of meaningful deal coming out of these talks.
Jeffrey Edmonds, former senior advisor in the Office of the Secretary of Defense and adjunct senior fellow at